kepada Syekh dan juga terima kasih kepada saudara Syarifuddin yang sebenarnya antara sahabat kita yang mengikuti pengajian dengan Maulana Fakhr Razi ini dah lama. Dia memang mengikuti kuliah-kuliah yang dirakam di taman IPNA dan dia datang, walaupun sudah sibuk di Pulau Pinang, datang istimak daripada kita mula istimak dan hingga yang terakhir kita buat itu pun dia datang. Beliau adalah seorang yang mencintai ilmu Beliau belajar secara online dengan Syekh dan dah akan tamat belajar 2020 nanti. Jadi kita doakan beliau akan menamatkan pengajian beliau bersama Syekh Tosir. Dan sebut sedikit tentang badata tamu yang pada malam ini, Syekh Mohammed Tosir Miah. Beliau merupakan seorang graduat daripada Darul Ilm Yuli, antara sebuah madrasah yang tertua di United Kingdom. Di antara guru-guru beliau adalah Maulana Yusuf Mutala, Maulana Hashim Sahib, Maulana Abdul Hakim Sahib dan lain-lain. Selain daripada pendidikan beliau dalam bidang agama, beliau juga telah mendapat pendidikan dalam bidang undang-undang dan telah lulus dengan ijazah sarjana muda sastra dalam undang-undang LLB daripada Birmingham City University. Selain bidang agama, beliau merupakan ketua sarjana undang-undang. Beliau merupakan pengetua Institut Al-Islah di Smithwick, UK dan editor kepada majalah Al-Mujib yang diterbitkan setiap 3 bulan. Selain itu, beliau bersama dengan beberapa orang asatizah tempatan Birmingham yang lain mengelolakan website Darul Ilm Birmingham sejak bulan Julai 2006. Dah lama beliau aktif, bertujuan membantu masyarakat tempatan di Birmingham mendapat penyelesaian kepada persoalan-persoalan agama mereka. Dia ada link Darul Ilm Birmingham. Kalau sahabat-sahabat boleh nanti kita ada share dalam WhatsApp Darul Quran, boleh tengok di situ. Sekitar bulan Ogos 2013 beliau telah menubuhkan sebuah madrasah di Birmingham yang menawarkan berbagai kursus dari tingkat rendah hingga ke tingkat alimiah dan takhasus. Madrasah tersebut, Darul Ilm Birmingham, ini mempunyai lebih kurang 25 orang ustaz dan ustazah dan lebih kurang 200 pelajar. Selain itu, beliau juga melakukan ceramah dan kuliah beberapa negara seperti di Bahrain, Australia, Denmark, Sweden dan lain-lain. Dan rakaman kuliah beliau boleh diakses di link Darul Ilm UK. Nanti tuan-tuan boleh tengok Jadi itu sedikit yang kita boleh berkongsi berdasarkan. Dan kita jemput Syekh dan juga saudara-saudara beliau untuk tempat. Dan saudara-saudara beliau boleh mungkin buka balik kita dengan ceritakan sikit sedikit pengalaman dia belajar Malaysia dan terus pada kuliah kita pada hari ini. Itu adab menuntut ilmu. Kita silakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya salah seorang daripada penuntut murid kepada Syekh Mohammed Tosir secara online. So saya telah mengikuti kelas daripada tahun 2014, Ogos 2014, daripada tahun 1 sekarang tahun 4. InsyaAllah dalam 2 tahun lagi akan tamat belajar peringkat permulaannya. So saya belajar daripada dengan institusi ini daripada mula, daripada saya tak faham bahasa Arab langsung. So alhamdulillah pada masa sekarang boleh at least boleh baca sedikit kitab-kitab Arab dan boleh terjemah sedikit lah. So sejak 3 tahun lepas Syekh Tosir telah datang Malaysia setiap tahun untuk just untuk ziarah Malaysia, sebab Malaysia mempunyai komuniti umat Islam yang tinggi. So dia nak dapatkan lebih kontak dan kenalan dengan umat Islam di sini. So ini adalah tahun yang ketiga. So dan tahun yang kedua datang ke sini. So tahun lepas kita hanya ziarah. So tahun ini kita akan cuba untuk buat short event lah. So untuk tak meninggalkan masa, mungkin serahkan kepada Syekh Tosir untuk menggunakan talk dia.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Firstly, I would like to thank Darul Quran wal Hadith for giving me the opportunity to convey the message of Allah and His Messenger Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I would also like to thank the volunteer brothers, Brother Sharif in particular, for organizing this particular event. May it be a sadaqah jariyah for every single brothers involved in hosting and in holding this event. Ameen thumma ameen. Now today's event or today's program is actually a program which I am very, very comfortable with. Alhamdulillah, I myself like to think to be more like a teacher, a muallim, than a da'i or a lecturer. And alhamdulillah, many of the brothers and sisters who have attended today's event, as Brother Sharif was telling me, that you have many, many durusis, many lectures which are held at this institution. So in a way, I feel comfortable in talking to you brothers and sisters, because I think of myself to be more like a muallim and a teacher rather than a da'i and a lecturer. And today's lecture or today's program will concentrate on these points regarding the adabs, the etiquettes of studying sacred knowledge and ilm, and more importantly, what kind of adabs and respects which we need to show to our mashayikh, to our teachers, to our ustads. As mentioned in the hadith, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-ulama warathatul anbiya. So we need to make sure that we respect our teachers, we respect ilm and knowledge, so that we are able to, inshallah, benefit from it fully, and we are able to rectify our own selves in this world and be successful of it in the hereafter. Now, one of the greatest gifts which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to a person is ilm and his knowledge. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves someone, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes someone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give that person money. Allah would not give that person a brand new car or a promotion in his job. But rather, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes someone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him the ability and the tawfiq to understand Quran and Hadith. It is mentioned in a hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "May yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqqihhu fi din." That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends good for someone, khair for someone, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives that person understanding, tafaqquh fi din. It's a hadith which I recently taught to some of our students, narrated by Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that once some booty, mani ghanimat, came, and Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the booty to somebody, and he didn't give it to somebody else. So he gave it to one group of people, and he didn't give it to somebody else. But Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he thought that the person who Prophet ﷺ did not give the booty to was actually more better in Islam and more better in deen than the one who he gave it to. So Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas radiallahu ta'ala anhu complained and he said, "O Prophet of Allah, this person who you didn't give the booty, the mal-e-fay to, his iman is more better, and the one who you gave it to, his iman is weaker." So Prophet ﷺ explained that the ones who I don't give mal and wealth to is because I want to save them from the calamities of the world. And that is a sign that actually these people who I don't give wealth to is more closer to me than the ones who I give wealth to. So the point I want to make is, whenever Allah or His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they love someone, they don't give them mal, they don't give them wealth, but rather they give them the ability to understand Quran and to understand the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In another hadith which can be found in Sahih Muslim, narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "An-nasu ma'adin, ka ma'adin al-dhahabi wal-fidda." Like people are like metals, like the metals of gold and silver. What does that mean? It means that not all metals, gold or silver, are going to be pure. Some are good gold, some you have the gold but it is mixed with mud, soil, froth, dirt, and some gold and silver is pure. So what Prophet ﷺ is saying, "An-nasu ma'adin ka ma'adin al-dhahabi wal-fidda," is that people, some people, you get different types of people. You get people, mashallah, very, very good. Very, very good qualities, very, very good attributes. And then you have some people who don't have good qualities. So what did Prophet ﷺ say? خِيَارُهُمْ فِي الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ خِيَارُهُمْ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ إِذَا فَقُهُوا أَوْ كَمَا قَالَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. That the best of them in Jahiliyyah, in ignorance, is the best of them in Islam when they have understanding of deen. What does that mean? It means that, just imagine a non-Muslim. Like in Malaysia, I think the majority of the non-Muslims are Buddhists. So just imagine a non-Muslim, a Buddhist. If he or she, they may have some good qualities, like they may have good manners, good akhlaq. When they convert to Islam, they will have the same privilege in terms of, mashallah, they had good manners before. When they convert to Islam, they also are going to be good as well, but on the condition, إِذَا فَقُهُوا, they have understanding of deen. So in other words, just because you may have been good before, because not all non-Muslims are bad. You get some non-Muslims who are good, who give charity, who do aid work, who look after the poor, who look after the needy. Mashallah, some non-Muslims are good. Now it says that when they convert to Islam, they will also be good as well, but the condition is إِذَا فَقُهُوا, when they have understanding of deen. So can you see from this hadith even the importance the Sharia places on understanding of deen? Just having good manners, which by the way is good, having good manners, being kind to the poor, being kind to the needy, doing aid work, all these things are good. But it will be even more better if you have ilm and knowledge and understanding of deen. So you could have, mashallah, beautiful akhlaq and conduct. You could be saying salam to everyone, and you could be very humble. But unless you have ilm and knowledge, then these things, when it comes to converting to Islam, will be irrelevant, because the Sharia says, or the Hadith says, إِذَا فَقُهُ, when they have understanding of it. There is another Hadith, talks about the importance of ilm. Prophet ﷺ teaching ilm. Prophet ﷺ being like to be classed as a mu'allim. A hadith of Mishkat al-Masabi with the reference of Sunan al-Darmi, that there were two gatherings in the masjid. Two gatherings in the masjid. One gathering, they were talking about Allah. They were doing more da'wah work. They were talking about Allah, about Allah's sifats, Allah's attributes. Then there was another gathering, يُعَلِّمُونَ الْجَاهِلَ الْفِقْهَ وَالْعِلْمَ. They were teaching the jahil, the ignorant, fiqh and ilm and knowledge. So Prophet ﷺ said, both of these gatherings are good. Both of these gatherings are good. So alhamdulillah, this halaqah where they're doing da'wah, that's good as well. And likewise, this gathering here where they are teaching them ilm, knowledge, fiqh, masla, masayils, like mashallah, many of you brothers are Shafis, so you study Bulugul Maram with Sheikh here, don't you? So these things. So Prophet ﷺ said that that gathering where they're teaching fiqh and ilm and knowledge, that gathering is more better than this gathering. Because Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ مُعَلِّمًا, I have been sent as a teacher. ثُمَّ جَلَسَ فِيهِمْ, then he went and he sat with them. So alhamdulillah, these are three hadiths I've just mentioned about the importance of acquiring knowledge. The importance of not just acquiring knowledge, but at the same time teaching knowledge to others as well. You have to be a mu'allim as well. You can't just be, you acquire knowledge, but then you have the passion to kind of teach that knowledge to somebody else as well. Some translation.
So, saya akan bagi summary saja. So, Syekh cakap apa ni, hadiah apa ni, ganjaran yang terbaik kepada seseorang manusia bukanlah apa ni, kekayaan ataupun wang ringgit, tetapi yang paling penting adalah pengetahuan atau ilmu. Dan apabila Allah menghendaki seseorang kebaikan kepada seseorang, Allah akan memberikan kefahaman kepada ilmu kepada orang tersebut. So, dan yang kedua, Syekh juga menyebut tentang hadis yang menyebutkan bahawa orang-orang yang terbaik di dalam pada masa ini dalam menjadi Islam adalah orang yang juga baik pada masa ia sebelum menjadi Islam. So, kriteria yang ada pada seseorang itu sebelum dia menganut Islam, so yang universal. So bila ia menganut Islam, dia akan membawa perkara-perkara yang baik itu bersama-sama dia akan semasa ia menganut Islam. Dan yang ketiga, Syekh menceritakan tentang hadis di mana di dalam Masjid Nabawi terdapat dua gathering, dua kumpulan, satu kumpulan majlis zikir dan satu kumpulan lagi sedang belajar dan mengajar tentang ilmu. So Rasulullah SAW mengatakan kedua-dua kumpulan tersebut adalah baik, tetapi yang lebih baik daripada antara keduanya itu adalah majlis yang mengajar dan mempelajari ilmu. So, dan selepas mengatakan itu, Rasulullah duduk di kalangan mereka yang mengajar dan belajar ilmu tersebut. So,
Now the final point I was making just before I passed it on to Brother Sharif was that it's not just about ilm or knowledge, that just acquiring or accumulating ilm, but it's also important that whatever we learn, we then preach to others. And we call this having a fikr. Fikr meaning having that concern for the people around us. It shouldn't be, I know how to pray salah, or I know the faraid of wudu or ghusl, but then everybody else who are in this community, who are in this masjid, don't know the faraids of wudu or ghusl. So what benefit is there other than just for me, but the people in that community don't know how to pray, don't know how to fast, don't know how to give zakat, don't know how to perform hajj. So it's not just about acquiring ilm and knowledge, but it's about also preaching it to others as well. That's why Prophet ﷺ, he always cared about his ummah. On the day of judgment, where every single prophet will say, Nafsi, Nafsi, the Prophet of Allah ﷺ will say, Ummati, Ummati. And because the shuyukhs, the scholars, or the students of ilm are al-ulama warathatul anbiya, it is very, very important that we basically make sure that whatever little bit of ilm and knowledge we acquire, we then pass it on to others. I just want to clarify an objection some may have, and that is that, why is it such that ulamas always like to give lectures and preaching? Some may say that, whenever there's an alim, I always see him, he's on the stage, he's always giving a lecture, or like, for example, he may be giving a khutbah on the Fridays. Why is that all the case? Like, why can't we just have an alim who basically just acquires knowledge and that's it? Now the reason why is because, do you know when you get beneficial ilm, beneficial knowledge, it overwhelms you, that you can't contain it. It's like a secret somebody's told you. It's like good news somebody has told you that you can't contain it. You feel, in a way, compelled to kind of pass that knowledge on to somebody. So this notion that, why do ulamas always give lectures for? Why do they always give da'wah for? Why do they always teach for? Subhanallah, this is the power of ilm. It's not the desire of an alim or a sheikh or a scholar to constantly teach or to constantly give da'wah. No, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala penetrates your heart with ilm, you have this kind of sense of joy in whatever you've learned. You want to pass that on to the ummah and to your students. So I just thought I'd just clarify that misconception perhaps some of the audience brothers and sisters may have.
Okay, so antara poin-poin dia tadi adalah Syekh mengatakan untuk kita tidak semata-mata sentiasa di samping mendapatkan ilmu pengetahuan daripada guru-guru, kita pada masa yang sama ilmu-ilmu yang kita telah belajar itu adalah penting untuk kita sebarkan kepada orang lain, terutamanya kepada sesiapa yang kita tahu tidak mengetahui ilmu tersebut. So kita mesti mempunyai macam keinginan untuk semua orang mendapat ilmu yang sama seperti yang kita ada. So bila kita mendapat sesuatu benda yang baru, kita merasa perasaan yang meluap-luap untuk mengajar kepada orang lain. So itu contoh seperti yang kita dapat tengok kepada Rasulullah SAW. beliau sentiasa apabila mendapat apabila bersama dengan sahabat atau dengan sekeliling, beliau sentiasa mengambil berat tentang sahabat-sahabat beliau dan sentiasa seperti yang Syekh katakan, insya-Allah di hari pembalasan nanti banyak nabi-nabi lain akan berkatakan akan menghiraukan diri mereka sendiri, tetapi Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam akan mengambil berat tentang umat baginda. So, dan poin yang terakhir tadi Syekh menjelaskan sesuatu yang dia rasa mungkin untuk menjelaskan perkara tentang, kadang-kadang ada orang bertanya kenapa ulama ataupun guru-guru sentiasa memberi kuliah, memberi ceramah di berbagai tempat, pergi daripada satu tempat dan mengadakan ceramah, sentiasa mengadakan ceramah apabila dia ada peluang untuk melakukannya. So dia kata biasanya apabila seseorang guru tu ataupun seseorang syekh tu mendapat suatu ilmu atau dia mempunyai suatu ilmu yang dia rasa dia dapat ilmu masuk dalam hatinya, dia akan berasa sangat sangat mahu untuk menyebarkan ilmu itu kepada orang lain. So itu menunjukkan ilmu itu masuk dengan mendalam ke dalam dada seseorang itu apabila dia mahu menyebarkan apa yang dia tahu kepada orang lain, supaya orang lain juga akan sama mengetahui seperti dia.
Now, for us to be successful, as I was saying at the beginning, in this path of ilm and knowledge, for us to make sure that we are not deprived of ilm and knowledge, there are certain adabs, certain etiquettes, which we all need to, inshallah, me included, as teachers, as students, we all need to adhere to. And if we don't adhere to these adabs and etiquettes, then unfortunately we may not be successful in this path, in this world, and it could be a cause of our disgrace in the hereafter. The first adab or etiquette to mention is respecting our teachers. And again, many of these adabs are actually from the Quran and from the Hadith and from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the first etiquette to mention is to respect our teachers. And what is meant by respecting our teachers in terms of we should not speak before them. We should not even walk before them. We should not even, like, to the extent that if we are all eating together, we shouldn't eat or start eating before our teachers. I'm just going to mention to you a verse in the Holy Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasulihi wattaqullah. The first ayat of Surah Al-Hujurat. And the Shani Nuzul, i.e. the reason why this ayat was revealed, was once there was a dispute between Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala and Umar radiallahu ta'ala. And what happened was that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting and an issue was raised that who should be the Amir of the Banu Tamim. The issue was raised that who should we make the Amir of the Banu Tamim. Now, before Prophet ﷺ could speak, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he suggested that we should make Aqra bin Habis the Amir. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he suggested Qa'qa ibn Ma'bad to be the Amir. And this discussion between Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was taking place right in front of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam without his consent. So this ayat was revealed, and it's saying to everyone that don't speak before Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Don't even walk before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Don't even raise your voice before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I mentioned, al-ulama warathatul anbiya. So the scholars have derived that the same etiquettes which were needed for the companions in front of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam can also be applicable for the students in front of their shuyukh and in front of their teachers.
So, saya mengatakan untuk berjaya dalam mencari ilmu, untuk berjaya dalam kita punya perjalanan untuk mencari ilmu ini, kita perlu mempunyai beberapa adab yang perlu ada supaya ilmu-ilmu yang kita cari itu akan pertama akan mendapat memberi berkat kepada kita, dan pada masa yang sama kita akan dapat terus-menerus mencari ilmu dan mendapatkan ilmu itu masuk dalam hati kita. So, poin yang pertama tadi Syekh cakap adalah adab yang pertama adalah menghormati guru. So, Syekh bagi contoh, contohnya jangan bercakap sebelum guru memulakan percakapan antaranya, ataupun mungkin apabila sedang makan bersama-sama, mungkin kita dahulukan guru kita untuk makan dahulu sebelum kita sendiri makan bersama beliau. So, saya menceritakan satu asbab nuzul untuk ayat Al-Hujurat, ayat yang pertama. Saya bacakan dia punya maksud saja. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wahai orang-orang yang beriman, janganlah kamu memandai-mandai melakukan sesuatu perkara sebelum mendapat hukum atau kebenaran Allah dan Rasulnya. Dan bertakwalah kamu kepada Allah, sesungguhnya Allah Maha mendengar lagi Maha mengetahui. So, cerita di sebalik penurunan ayat ini adalah apabila Abu Bakar dan Umar berbincang mengenai siapa yang sepatutnya menjadi pemimpin kepada Bani Tamim di hadapan Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, di mana mereka berdua radhiyallahu anhu telah memberikan pandangan-pandangan mereka even sebelum Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam bercakap mengenai ini. So, ayat ini diturunkan untuk menasihati mereka supaya sebelum mereka memberikan pandangan ataupun apa-apa pandangan, so sebaik-baiknya mereka membiarkan Rasulullah memberikan Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam memulakan discussion tersebut.
The second adab or etiquette is that in front of your teachers and your ustads, one should not raise his voice as well, not to speak loudly in front of them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawti nabi, which is the next verse after. So not to raise your voice in front of the voice of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So again, when you are in front of your teachers, your shuyukhs, again, adab, respect demands that in front of them, you speak to them softly. This ayat also, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum, was revealed about a companion called Thabit ibn Qais. And Thabit ibn Qais was one of those companions who naturally had a very loud voice. Not naturally very, very loud. We actually have a student at Darul Ilm, all the way back in UK, his name is Hussein. Naturally just speaks very, very loud. He's a good student. Obviously, it doesn't mean any harm when he speaks loudly. But even then, it's also important that even though you may have a loud voice, you kind of like speak quietly and try your best not to raise it in front of the ustad and in front of the teachers.
adab yang kedua ialah Syekh mengatakan adab yang kedua adalah jangan meninggikan suara di hadapan guru atau ustaz. So di hadapan guru kita basically. For example, Syekh menceritakan tentang asbab nuzul, sebab turunan ayat Hujurat yang kedua, di mana saya bacakan dia punya maksud dia. Wahai orang-orang yang beriman, janganlah kamu mengangkat suara kamu melebihi suara Nabi, dan janganlah kamu menyaringkan suara dengan lantang semasa bercakap dengannya. Ayat ini diturunkan berkenaan dengan seorang sahabat yang bernama Thabit bin Ibn Qais. Dia adalah seorang sahabat yang secara semula jadi mempunyai suara yang bila bercakap secara semula jadi memang bercakap secara kuatlah. Bukan ada sebab apa-apa, tapi sebab memang macam kadang-kadang setengah orang memang seperti itu. So, tapi still pada masa yang sama, walaupun begitu, kita dinasihatkan cuba untuk mengawalnya apabila bercakap dengan guru-guru ataupun dengan ustaz, dengan guru-guru kita yang masing-masing.
The third etiquette is also very important as well, is when it comes to addressing your teachers, then never and not to address them with their names, but rather when you address your teachers or your shuyukhs, you address them with a respectable name, not with a name which is very disrespectful, but with a name which is kind of according to their shan, according to their greatness. The name Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was specifically used. Muhammadur Rasulullah at the end of Surah Fatah. But generally speaking, the word Ya Rasulullah or the word Ya Nabi Allah is used. And the reason why, as I mentioned before, Muhammadur Rasulullah, only in 4 places in the Holy Quran it is used. It is used in 4 places in the Holy Quran for a specific reason. And the reason why Allah in Surah Fatah mentioned Muhammadur Rasulullah walladhina ma'ahu ashidda wal kuffar, and he mentioned the word Muhammad Rasulullah specifically there, was during the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. During the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, when Suhail bin Amr said to Prophet ﷺ that you need to remove your name Muhammad Rasulullah, so and rather say Muhammad Ibnu Abdullah. Because of that reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then revealed Prophet ﷺ's name specifically in Surah Fatah. But generally speaking, whenever we look through the Holy Quran, Prophet ﷺ is always addressed with the words Ya Nabi Allah or with the words Ya Rasulullah. And by the way, this is like addressing people with good names, nice names, with their titles. It's not just for ulamas and scholars, but even for people of other professions. Like if somebody is a doctor, so to address him as Dr. So-and-so and Dr. So-and-so, then this is also kind of like correct as well. Because there is a hadith which can be found in Abu Dawood, hadith of Abu Dawood, where the commissioners are those people who do business and they take a certain cut or a certain percentage of the profits. So the commissioners in those days were called Samasira. The commissioners in those days were called Samasira. So Prophet ﷺ, he went to the markets and he changed that and he said, don't call them Samasira, but rather call them Ya Ma'sharat Tujjar. Ya Ma'sharat Tujjar. A more respectable, dignified name. So what we can understand is that, yes, for the scholars, your teachers, your shuyukhs, call out to them in a nice name, but also at the same time, other people as well from other professions, it's also important that you kind of call out to them in a nice way as well.
Okay, adab yang ketiga saya bagi tahu apabila kita nak bercakap dengan guru-guru kita sepatutnya menggunakan jangan panggil dia dengan nama yang sebenar, nama dia yang biasa orang panggil lah, nama dia sendirilah. Dan biasanya kita akan panggil dia dengan nama yang untuk sebagai menghormati guru kita tersebut lah. So biasanya kalau macam guru yang biasa panggil ustaz ataupun something macam lebih kurang macam tu. So saya memberitahu ini boleh ambil contoh, for example daripada Al-Quran sendiri. Apabila Allah nak bercakap kepada Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dia akan disebut sebagai, for example, Nabi Allah ataupun pesuruh Rasulullah. So hanya 4 tempat sahaja di dalam Al-Quran di mana nama Muhammad itu disebut secara jelas. Selain daripada itu, apabila untuk bercakap kepada Rasulullah, dia akan menggunakan Al-Quran akan menggunakan perkataan Nabi Allah ataupun Rasulullah.
Now, after mentioning some adabs and etiquettes with regards to the mashayikh kiram and the teachers, now we're going to look at some intentions which has got to do with the student himself. So the first kind of etiquettes is regarding intention, sincerity. That making sure you're acquiring ilm and knowledge with the intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're not doing it with the intention of fame. You're not doing it with the intention of riyah. And unfortunately, what we see nowadays is that ilm has now become a tool, a means to get famous. People now quote shadh opinions, rare fatwas, controversial opinions. Why? So that they get some publicity. So people know them. If there is a scholar or a mufti who's giving simple fatwas that salah is farz and there are 4 fara'id of wudu and 3 fara'id of ghusl, no one will listen to it. If somebody says there's 2 namaz which is farz, 2 prayers which is farz, then because it's controversial and also it's incorrect as well, then that person you will see will get more publicized and he will become more famous. So we have to make sure, brothers and sisters, that when we are studying ilm and knowledge, you're doing it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one thing very, very important, and I've said this many times as well during lesson time, I'm sure Brother Sharif must have heard me say this, is don't advertise or publicize whatever we do. Especially nowadays with social media and Facebook, that any student who just like studying has to take a selfie of himself, studying kitab, studying Riyadh Salihin, studying Sahih al-Bukhari, and he has to post it on Facebook. He has to show it on social media that I'm studying. Na'udhu, because if he was really, really serious, if he really, really did it with the intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he wouldn't be posting these things on Facebook. Okay, fair enough, here and there, if it's an important quote or a lecture, you want to share that with other people, fine. But every little thing, every lecture, every dars, every time you do muraja'ah, you need to do a selfie that you're studying, and that's not good. That shows that the little bit of sincerity perhaps you have has now faded away and has now gone. I just want to mention, and this is actually very important for students as well, because sometimes we start with good intention, don't get me wrong, but then afterwards our intention goes to other reasons and for other points. I just want to mention one or two hadiths so you understand the severity of riyah. Severity that when we do good deeds, good actions, and ilm is a good action, that we are not doing good deeds or good actions to show off. There is one hadith, a famous hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ has said, Man samma'a samma'a Allahu bihi, and wa man yura'i yura'i Allahu bihi. Which means that whoever does something samma'a, to make people hear. So he's studying, he's teaching, he's giving lectures, but he's doing all those things so that people are aware of what he is doing. Then it says, Samma Allahu bihi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him hear, in terms of, will make his real intention in his heart, Allah will expose that he's doing it for fame. He's not doing dars or lecture, or he's not studying with the intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he's doing it for other ulterior motives. And likewise, وَمَنْ يُرَائِي, that the one who studies ilm or does any good deeds to show off, يُرَائِي اللَّهُ بِهِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also expose him as well. And another hadith about riyah, a very famous hadith, Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Bihasbi imra'in min ash-shar." Bihasbi imra'in min ash-shar, which means that it is sufficient for a person to be considered evil. It is sufficient for a person to be classed as an evil person. أن يشار إليه بالأصابع في دين أو دنيا إلا من عصمه الله. أن يشار بالأصابع في دين أو دنيا إلا عصمه الله. i.e. that when people start pointing fingers at you, what does that mean, pointing fingers at you? In other words, you start becoming popular. Oh, there's Sheikh there, there's Ustad there, there's Hazrat there. So when you start becoming popular, people know who you are. It goes on to explain that that is sufficient enough for your shar. That means actually, do you know what? You're in a bad place, you're in a bad situation. Except illa man asamahullah, because obviously if you're going to give lectures, people would know you. Yeah, people know the shuyukhs. But yes, the one who Allah preserves and protects, then that's different. But the point I'm trying to make is that be careful, be wary, that when you are studying, whatever you do in life, whether you're giving lectures, whether you're giving da'wah, whether you're teaching, whether you're giving bayans, whether you're studying, whether you're doing ibadat or worship, you do it solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you make sure that you're not doing it to promote yourself and to publicize, otherwise Allah will expose your true intentions to everyone.
So, saya mengatakan poin yang seterusnya adalah selain daripada adab-adab kepada guru, kita juga ada adab kepada diri sendiri sebagai seorang pelajar. Yang paling penting sekali saya mengatakan adalah niat kita untuk belajar. So, apakah niat kita untuk belajar itu? Kita perlu membersihkan niat kita daripada semasa ke semasa. Contohnya, even kalau kita pada mulanya mempunyai niat yang bersih, tapi sepanjang perjalanan kita harus mengambil masa untuk memastikan niat kita sentiasa dibersihkan daripada masa ke semasa. Kerana kadang-kadang apabila kita telah mendapat sesetengah ilmu, niat kita akan bertukar daripada yang bersih kepada yang tidak bersih. Contohnya untuk mendapatkan popular seperti something like that. So antara contoh yang saya bagi tahu contoh orang yang tidak mempunyai yang bersih dalam contohnya mempelajari ilmu untuk mendapatkan populariti ataupun untuk supaya orang kenal dia dan seperti itu lah. So itu khulasannya.
And under this point about Riyah, I didn't finish off all the points before, but under this point about Riyah, also at the same time it's important that as students we don't publicize all the time what we know or what we have done. It comes under the verse Alam tara ila alladhina yuzakkuna anfusahum balillahu yuzakki man yasha, which means self-purification. And the problem, well, this is what I've noticed, is that those people who constantly need to tell others about what they're studying, what they're learning, what kitabs they have studied, they are doing this because they feel intimidated by it. So to reassure themselves, they have to say that I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So in a way that tells us that your intentions of studying are not right. You're just doing it to reassure yourself. I'll give you an example of what I mean. It's like sometimes when somebody meets you and without you even asking them anything, they've already started saying, oh, Mufti Saab or Sheikh, we're doing this book, we're studying this book, and so on. So they give a full list of kitabs to study. And sometimes I think to myself, well, what was the point of doing this? No one was even asking you what books are you studying. Yes, if the Sheikh asked you what books are you studying and then you give them a list, that's understandable. But without the Sheikh or without anyone asking you and you giving a full list of what you're doing or what your institution is doing, that in itself is telling me that actually, you know what, you feel a bit intimidated and you have to give a full list of what you are doing and what you're studying to reassure yourself. So the point I'm trying to make is that when we study ilm and knowledge, we shouldn't do it to kind of make others happy. We shouldn't feel intimidated. So what if somebody's got more knowledge than us? There's no competition here. So what if somebody knows something more than us? It doesn't matter. So the key thing is that you need to understand that you're doing it for your own tazkiyah, for your own betterment, and you're not doing it to kind of like say you're better than somebody else, or you don't want others to be better than you, so you have to say I've done this many number of kitabs and I've studied under this many number of shuyukhs. There's no reason for you to say that. So again, it goes back to that same point of making sure you're doing it with the good intentions.
So saya sambung tentang Riyah tadi. So poin yang dia mengatakan apabila kita belajar sesuatu atau kita dalam proses mempelajari sebaik-baiknya kita tidak terlalu memberitahu kepada orang lain ataupun dalam contohnya dalam keadaan media sosial sekarang, sentiasa memberitahu apa yang kita dalam belajar proses mungkin satu atau dua kali just untuk memberitahu tentang program-program itu adalah perkara biasa. Tapi apabila kita nak beritahu orang, Syekh kata mungkin tanda-tanda mengatakan apa yang seorang pelajar itu mungkin tidak yakin tentang apa yang dia belajar ataupun dia mempunyai niat yang tidak bersih tentang tujuan dia belajar sesuatu ilmu tersebut.
And also under this particular point, to remember that وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ, which means that when it comes to ilm and knowledge, you are not going to know every single thing. You're not going to know every single thing. There are certain ulums which some people will know more better than you. So again, it goes back to that same point that you're learning for the sake of Allah. If somebody has more ulums than you, don't be jealous of them. Yes, have that ambition that you want to have that in yourself. But this is something which Allah has said, وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَىٰ بَعْضٍ. That some people will be more better than you in some fields. Some may have more in-depth knowledge of usul, but you don't. Some may know hadith well, but you don't. But then that person knows fiqh more better than you do. Some people may know the science of like asbab al-jarah wa ta'dil or asma al-jarah wa ta'dil, and you don't. So what I'm trying to say is that Allah has given some virtues of some people over others. I can give you an example. Like Imam Suyuti rahimullah, he was known to be an expert when it comes to mathematics. Ishaq bin Rahway, the very famous muhaddith, he was an expert when it came to calligraphy. So the point I'm trying to make is that some shuyukhs and scholars will have more knowledge than you. Doesn't mean that you get upset or you get jealous regarding it. Yes, you try hard, you work towards it, but there's no need for you to get jealous, because this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made some people over others, has given virtues of some people over others.
Saya juga mengatakan apabila kita dalam proses pembelajaran, kita sepatutnya satu perkara yang akan menjadi dugaan kepada kita, for example, perasaan cemburu kepada orang lain, for example kita belajar dan kawan kita belajar, for example, kita sepatutnya tidak mempunyai perasaan tersebut, kerana Allah akan beri kelebihan yang berbeza-beza kepada setiap orang. So saya memberi contoh Imam Suyuti, dia seorang imam yang kita tahu dalam Islam, tetapi dia adalah seorang pakar dalam bidang matematik, dan seorang lagi imam pada zaman dia, Ishaq bin Rahway, adalah seorang pakar dalam bidang kaligrafi. So mereka ni adalah nama-nama besar dalam sejarah, tetapi mereka mempunyai bidang kepakaran mereka masing-masing. So bila kita belajar, kita akan mendapati kita mempunyai kelebihan dan orang lain akan mempunyai kelebihan. Itu sepatutnya menjadi suatu benda yang kita anggap sebagai satu, kalau kita nak kelebihan bersama, sebagai cabaran kepada kita, instead of ambil sebagai perasaan cemburu.
So all these points I've mentioned, they all come under point number 1 in terms of some adabs and etiquettes which the student, he himself or herself, should need to adhere to be successful. So number 1 is intention. Number 2, the second important adab or etiquettes to remember is regarding humbleness. To be humble, tawadu. And what is meant by tawadu is that the more you learn, the more you acquire, the more knowledge you have, the more humble you should be. And unfortunately what happens now is, a student, the more knowledgeable he gets, the more he forgets about his ustad. The more knowledgeable, the more excellent he gets on certain field, the more he forgets his shuyukh. He thinks, no, it's because of me. So, very, very important that when you acquire ilm and knowledge, yes, Allah may give you tawfiq and you may become very, very knowledgeable, but you need to understand that you have become knowledgeable because of your ustad and because of your shuyukh. Just one quick story to mention of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam. Everyone knows stories in Surah Namal. So the Queen of Sheba, Bilqis, was coming to visit him. So Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam wanted to show a miracle and wanted someone to bring her throne from Sheba, Saba, all the way to Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam's court. So there was a jinn. So the jinn said that I will bring this throne قَبْلَ أَن تَقُومَ مِن مَقَامِكَ. But Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam wanted this throne to come quicker than that. So one of his disciples, whose name was Asif bin Barkhiyah, he managed to bring that throne قَبْلَ أَن يَرْتَدَّ إِلَيْكَ طَرْفُكَ, before the blinking of an eye. Now the reason why I'm mentioning this story is Asif bin Barkhiyah, who remember is the disciple of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, him being able to bring that throne in a blink of an eye is because of his teacher, i.e. Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. That this karamat which happened on Asif bin Barkhiyah's hands was due to the excellence of his ustad, his teacher, i.e. Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. The point which I want to make is a student, when he, alhamdulillah, graduates and he becomes knowledgeable and he becomes clever, it's not down to him. It's down to the brilliance of his shuyukh. And then the shuyukh's brilliance is due to his shuyukh's brilliance. And all the way up to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Jibreel, and Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So, saya juga secara summary saya mengatakan sebagai seorang student kita juga haruslah mengerti ada jasa-jasa guru kita. So apabila kita telah dapat ilmu dan telah memahirkan diri ilmu, seorang murid biasanya sepatutnya sentiasa mengingati daripada mana asbab dia dapat ilmu tersebut daripada guru-gurunya. So for example, contoh yang diberikan oleh Syekh adalah tentang cerita yang kita tahu tentang Ratu Sabah yang datang berjumpa dengan Nabi Sulaiman Nabi Sulaiman alaihissalam. So apabila Nabi Sulaiman nak membawakan takhta throne daripada negeri Sabah kepada di hadapan Ratu Sabah itu, so yang dapat membawakannya dalam sekelip mata itu adalah merupakan murid kepada Nabi Sulaiman itu sendiri yang bernama Asif bin Barkhiyah. So dia punya pengajaran daripada ini adalah walaupun kadang-kadang kita boleh mendapatkan sesuatu perkara daripada sedikit lebih daripada guru kita, tetapi pada masa yang sama asas ataupun ilmu yang kita dapat itu adalah disebabkan asbab daripada guru kita, dan kita harus mengingatinya dan menghargai.
Another thing to mention, another very important adab, especially nowadays with social media, YouTube, is the importance of students trying to learn ilm and knowledge via the mashayikh, via the ustads. Because the thing is, alhamdulillah, you have a very beautiful library on my right hand side, so many books. And if you know decent Arabic, or even if you know Malay, or these Riyaz Salihin, Quran translation, if you know language well, you start thinking, I don't need to start, I could learn it by myself. So the other to mention is that it is important that one acquires knowledge from the shuyukhs and from the teachers. As-Safadi, a great scholar, he mentions the following. Listen carefully. He says, and I think his quote is also mentioned in your Taysir al-Mustalah Hadith as well, that it's mentioned, don't take knowledge from the one who has acquired it through scripts. Don't take knowledge from the one who has acquired it through scripts. And don't take the Quran from the one who acquired it from the Mus'haf. I.e., the one, if he just read Quran by himself, how do you know he's going to read it properly? If he hasn't studied Tajweed and he hasn't read the Quran with a sheikh listening or a ustada listening, how do you know that the way he's pronouncing Alhamdu is correct? Likewise, a teacher or a person, I should say, or a guy who just read hadith by himself but not via a sheikh or a ustad, then don't take knowledge from them. Because it could be the case that the way they're reading the Arabic to you may be incorrect, the way they explain the hadith to you may be incorrect, and as the hadith says, اتخذ الناس رؤوسا جهال فضلوا وأضلوا فأفتوا بغير علم فضلوا وأضلوا. So it's very, very important that you learn ilm and knowledge from the shuyukhs directly, not just via YouTube, not just via some quotes on Google or any other forums. Learn directly from the ustads and from the true shuyukhs.
Saya mengatakan satu poin yang amat penting adalah apabila kita nak mempelajari sesuatu ilmu, ilmu itu adalah penting untuk kita pelajari daripada guru-guru yang guru-guru yang sepatutnya. So saya memberitahu satu statement, satu quote daripada para ulama as-Safadi yang mengatakan jangan mengambil ilmu daripada seseorang yang belajar daripada kitab, maknanya orang itu belajar hanya daripada membaca kitab-kitab dan kita belajar daripada dia pula. So jadi kita guru tersebut sebenarnya tidak belajar daripada guru sebelumnya, dan jangan belajar Al-Quran daripada seorang yang hanya belajar daripada mushaf itu tapi tidak belajar daripada guru dan sebagainya. So itu adalah poin yang saya katakan, iaitu belajar ilmu ini perlu berguru dan dengan yang sepatutnya.
One last point, inshallah, before we finish, so another few minutes, inshallah. I just want to mention there are 6 signs, 6 alama, to know whether you have acquired beneficial knowledge or not. Because the thing is, nowadays, ilm or knowledge, something which is so easily accessible on YouTube, on Facebook, on social media, WhatsApp, these things, so easy to get knowledge and ilm. So many Islamic television channels. So I'm just going to mention 6 ways to tell whether ilm has benefited that person and whether it has penetrated into that person's heart. Number 1 is implementing. So whatever he acquires, whatever knowledge he learns, he takes, he then implements it, puts it into practice. Number 2, hatred of praise. When somebody has true ilm in his heart, he doesn't like to be praised. When people will say, Mufti Sahib, very knowledgeable, he doesn't like to hear those things. When Sheikh is very knowledgeable, he doesn't like to hear those things. Hatred of praise. Number 3, ilm should increase your modesty and your haya. That you become more, you have more haya. Al-haya shu'batun min al-iman. So you become more modest, the way you speak, the way you conduct yourself. You want to do those 3 first, inshallah.
Kalau Syekh mengatakan antara tanda untuk kita mengetahui sama ada ilmu yang kita dapat, ilmu yang kita pelajari itu adalah ilmu yang bermanfaat dan telah memasuki diri kita secara sebaik-baiknya. Yang pertama adalah kita mempraktikkan ilmu yang kita belajar. So bila kita mempraktikkan itu sebagai tanda yang kita telah mempelajarinya dengan baik. Yang kedua adalah kita tidak suka dipuji apabila kita mendapat suatu ilmu. So yang ketiga, dia menjadikan seseorang itu lebih rendah diri. Apabila kita macam peribahasa kita, apabila lebih berisi akan lebih tunduk. So bila kita ada ilmu, sepatutnya dia menjadikan seorang itu lebih dari.
The fourth way of knowing whether you are acquiring beneficial ilm or whether that ilm is then benefiting you is fleeing from leadership and fame. Like, you don't want to be well known, you don't want to be responsible. You just want to like acquire ilm, acquire knowledge all the time. And number 5, the fifth way, is you abandon claim of knowledge. That you don't go around and you say, oh, I know this, I know that, I know the answer. No. You know, how do you know ilm is penetrating to your heart? Is by you abandoning your claim that you know everything. Because you see a lot of people, they learn a bit and they'll say, oh yes, I know the hadith, I know tafsir, I know fiqh, I'm a mufti. No. The more ilm you acquire, the more you will kind of abandon your claim that you know everything. And the sixth thing is so amazing, is when the more ilm or the more knowledge you have more suspicion about yourself and not about others. You have more suspicion about yourself. What I mean by suspicion about yourself, that you think yourself to be a bit more bad. You think that, you know what, I'm not really a good person. You're acquiring ilm, but you think more bad of yourself, but you don't think bad of others. You think, you know what, that person there, he's more better than me. It makes you more lowly. You think more bad of yourself. You think, you know what, I'm more like a hypocrite. That I'm acquiring so much knowledge, but very little I'm acting upon. So you feel bad about yourself and not about others. Why? And the benefit of that is so that you don't then criticize or disparage or humiliate others. That's what ilm and knowledge makes you do. And obviously it's like a question then to the audience and to the brothers and sisters, is out of these 6 points, how many of those 6 we have? Alhamdulillah, if we have all 6 or close to those 6, that is telling us that the ilm which we are acquiring, whether with Sheikh here or online, they are really benefiting us. If we only have 1 or 2 of these points, then I recommend and I suggest that, inshallah, we try our best to kind of like rectify our intentions and to do it for the sake of Allah.
So, poin keempat, tanda-tanda daripada 6 tanda yang Syekh beritahu tentang untuk tahu sama ada ilmu yang kita dapat itu bermanfaat kepada diri kita atau tidak adalah, yang keempat adalah seorang itu akan lebih tidak suka untuk mendapat populariti ataupun kepimpinan. So seboleh-boleh dia akan melarikan diri daripada dilantik sebagai pemimpin dan sebagainya. Dan yang kelima adalah dia akan kurang, semakin mendapat ilmu, dia akan semakin kurang memberitahu orang dan dia tahu tentang banyak perkara. So dia akan lebih merendah diri memberitahu yang sebenarnya dia tak ada ilmu, contohnya. So yang poin yang keenam adalah dia semakin berilmu, dia akan lebih ambil berat tentang diri dia sendiri, cuba memperbaiki diri sendiri daripada mencari salah orang lain dan mengkritik orang lain. So itulah 6 tanda yang saya ceritakan tentang untuk mengetahui kita, just sebagai tanda untuk mengetahui sama ada ilmu yang kita dapat yang bermanfaat kepada diri kita atau tidak.
So back to concluding, inshallah, for, as I said before, Jazakallah khair for inshallah listening. Allah give us all tawfiq to act upon what has been said. Also like to take this opportunity to thank the Madrasa again for hosting our event, Brother Sharif, also other volunteer brothers as well, in your hospitality and in making this event successful. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah kepada Syekh Tosir dan juga saudara Syarifuddin yang sama-sama kita pada malam ini.